Now, the owner of the Houston Texans is now facing a backlash after he referred to his players as inmates. Oops. Now, this happened last week during an owners meeting, and this is Bob McNair, and he had talked about the NFL protests started by Colin Kaepernick. Now, the protests are, of course, there to, people kneeling during the national anthem in order to protest against police brutality and institutional racism. Now, McNair, the Texans, not exactly in favor of the protests, and he said as much. According to ESPN, he said, look, on the issue of, whether we should continue to allow our players to be able to use their First Amendment rights in order to protest, he said, we can't have the inmates running the prison. That is very, very unfortunate. McNair made the statements after the owners on the October 18th meeting, talked about business concerns surrounding the protests. A day after several owners and players had met to discuss social reform. After the owners finished talking, NFL executive Troy Vincent said he was offended by McNair's characterization of the players as inmates. And Vincent said that in all of his years of playing in the NFL, during which he said he had been called every name in the book, including the N-word, he said he never felt like an inmate. Look, man, that's that is offensive. I mean, what's not to be offended about when somebody says, "Oh, we can't let the inmates run the prison"? They're not inmates. They're players. They're your team. They're the people, by the way, who bring you all your money. If they weren't playing, you wouldn't have a team. You didn't have a team, you wouldn't have money. I know, but no. And besides, if they're the inmates, what does that make you, Bob McNair? Oh, right, the warden. Of course. And look, it just so happens, or maybe not. Look, the majority of people protesting are African American players, right? And that's not an accident. Can't be an accident. It's a very disgusting racial connotation here when you use the word inmate to describe players. I mean, look, African Americans are imprisoned at a rate of 5 times more than white Americans. They end up receiving longer sentences, and their communities are more heavily targeted by police than white communities. Just saying. Now, the drug war, of course, has, increased the amount of people being incarcerated for drugs by a lot. And most of these people happen to be African Americans. Most of these people are minorities that end up going to prison for just possession of drugs. So think about that. When you, go and talk this racial stereotyping. Now, later on, of course, after some backlash, McNair decided to apologize. And you'll love this. He said, "I regret I used that expression. I never meant to offend anyone, and I was not referring to our players. I used a figure of speech that was never intended to be taken literally." Well, don't use that figure of speech. He said, "I would never characterize our players in our league that way, and I apologize to anyone who was offended by it." So, to me, it seems like a non-apology apology. Like, that's not what I meant. I just, I just said it because, well, I really don't want my players using their First Amendment rights to go against police against injustice. So, I said something very, very unfortunate. Look, yes, he called them inmates, right? It's got racial connotations. Only an idiot doesn't realize that. Did you not notice that there are racial connotations when you call a bunch of black people inmates? Come on. If you're saying that, if you really think that there is no connotation to that, you're an idiot. But look, what's actually worse is not what he said, but in the context of what he was actually saying it in. And that is, of course, the fact that he does not want his players to be able to use their First Amendment rights to actually protest against injustice, against police brutality, against, ironically, the criminal justice system that imprisons a majority of African Americans. It's irony. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent progressive media, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/TYTNation.